Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Grand Union Hotel. This hotel resides in Fort Benton, which is one of the oldest towns in Montana, and it was first established by the French-American fur traders Auguste and Pierre Choteau in 1846. While much of the town has been dismantled by the years, the Grand Union Hotel still stands, and it is among the oldest in the town, with its initial build taking place in 1882. There are many ghost stories and haunting tales that have come from this hotel, but I will tell you one of my favorites. Apparently, this hotel might be the home to a paranormal horse. A phantom horse. It really doesn't get more interesting than that. People have reported hearing the stomping of hooves, and they believed that this horse belonged to a cowboy who, one night after having a few too many pops, tried to ride his horse up the main staircase before he was shot by the hotel manager. In our number 9 spot today, we have 2223 Montana Ave in Billings. This address seems a little suspiciously specific, but the story behind this haunting is quite a tragic accident. In 1945, on December 8th, an airplane that was transporting World War II soldiers who were returning home from war ended up crashing in a field east of Rocky Mountain College. 17 servicemen and 2 pilots lost their lives in this crash, while there were only 4 survivors. This is of course a lot of people, and at the time it was too many for the morgue to handle at one time, so the majority of the bodies needed to be stored somewhere else for the time being. This led to 13 of the bodies being held at a refrigerated warehouse of the local grocery store located at, you guessed it, 2223 Montana Ave. This address has had many different businesses come through its doors since this tragic story occurred, and with all these businesses, the same chilling stories have remained. Employees and customers have reported seeing the ghost of a man in a World War II era military uniform inside of this location. Considering the years it's been, it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere soon. In our number 8 spot today, we have Fort Peck Theater. This town dates back to the building of the Fort Peck Dam because the town was initially built to temporarily house the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, workers, and their families. In the 1930s, while building the amenities that would be needed, the Fort Peck Theater was also built in order to provide the residents with some entertainment. The theater is still used to this day, mostly for theatrical productions, but it's also full of paranormal entertainment as well. The theater is said to be haunted by a male spirit who appears wearing 1930s work clothes. Some visitors even report hearing sounds of men at work even when the theater is empty, and sometimes apparitions even appear in the dressing rooms. I just think that's the most theater thing ever. Ghosts in the dressing rooms? Shakespeare would love that. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Boulder Hot Springs Inn and Spa. This inn is located, of course, in Boulder, and it is actually a place that dates back to a time before Montana was even a state. This now historical landmark was initially created or recognized in 1881, and it was a place where businessmen, miners, and ranchers could all go, and here they could sort of mingle with each other. In this day and age, it is said that you might still be able to mingle with those guests from all of those years ago. As legend has it, this place is highly haunted. The most well-known of the ghosts here, however, is that of a woman named Simone. It is said that Simone sadly had her life taken in the hotel, and that her spirit now resides there. Visitors and staff alike have reported some really strange occurrences, like extreme temperature shifts, drastic changes in energy, and even the sound of children running through the halls when there is no one to be seen. In our number 6 spot today, we have St. Charles Hall. The oldest building on the Carroll College campus, which is located in Helena, is said to be St. Charles Hall, named after St. Charles Borromeo, who the college was actually initially named after. The building was originally constructed in 1904 and is mostly used as a dorm for students now, and those who reside in this dorm have quite the stories about the men's washroom on the 4th floor. This is said to have been the site of a horrible tale. Story goes that in 1964, a student blacked out while brushing their teeth, and as they fell, they hit their head on the sink in the bathroom. They were treated at the local hospital, but unfortunately passed from their injuries and complications. After this, students using that bathroom began to experience strange happenings. A glance in the mirror would have them seeing a young man standing behind them with a head wound. Some would turn on the faucet and see blood flowing rather than water. After years of these reports, the bathroom has apparently now been locked up and is no longer in use, but people still report hearing scraping sounds from the inside. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Many Glacier Hotel. The Many Glacier Hotel has sat in its home on the eastern shore of Swift Current Lake for over a century now, and with history like that, there is bound to be many a ghost story. Other hotels in the area too have talks and tales of hauntings, but none seem as active as the Many Glacier Hotel. A ghost hunter by the name of Karen Stevens has taken to documenting some of these paranormal stories. One of the most frightening is the tale of a young boy who apparently witnessed a woman woman in a red dress standing in his hotel room. Guests aren't the only ones, however. Employees too have had their own encounters. The most active room in the hotel is apparently room 308, where you can not only hear strange noises, but also see apparitions that vanish into thin air just as quickly as they appeared. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Daly Mansion. This mansion is located in Hamilton, and in its previous life, it was the farmhouse to the Copper King Marcus Daly. He purchased this home in 1886 and put it through some extensive renovations for it to become the sort of Georgian revival style that it still has today. In 1941, when Margaret Daly passed away, the house fell into disrepair after several years of being neglected, and this led to the state purchasing it in 1986. The state began restoration work on the property, and this is when many of the haunting tales started to spread. Smoking, of course, is not allowed in the home in this day and age, but many visitors to the home have experienced the distinct smell of a cigar smoke that seems to be coming from what was once the office of Marcus Daly. Not only this, but in the music room, there is a painting that just can't quite seem to stay on the wall, but no one has ever seen it fall off. Some even report to have seen the ghost of Mrs. Daly themselves. In our number 3 spot today, we have Grasshopper Glacier. This place is quite different than the others on this list, but for me, this place is the stuff of nightmares. Yeah, if you aren't a fan of bugs, you can go ahead and skip this one. If I were you, I would go. A glacier in Montana is the home to many grasshoppers and locusts. Yeah, imagine heading to a glacier, but you forgot bug spray. What a fool. Oh wait, I forgot. Grasshoppers, they don't care. They aren't mosquitoes, they're absolute savages. Appropriately named Grasshopper Glacier, the mile-long glacier near Crook City holds the remains of extinct grasshoppers. The only thing worse is if they all came back to life. These guys likely were in the middle of travel when they found themselves stuck in a blizzard, and now they're stuck for the foreseeable future. This is like a very forbidden version of one of those like scorpion lollipops. In our number 2 spot today, we have Virginia City. This town is often referred to as a ghost town due to the fact that as of 2020, the population sat just slightly over 200 people, and it is no surprise that this ghost town is said to be the home of some of Montana's most famous hauntings. Virginia City was first founded in 1863 by prospectors who originally named the area after the wife of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. The name was only changed when a Judge G.G. Bissell, who was signing the town's registration, objected to the name and instead ruled it to be called Virginia. The town's population began to grow once people heard of the nearby gold deposits and discoveries. As the town grew, there wasn't sufficient law enforcement, which meant that there were a lot of vigilantes out there looking to take the law into their own hands. This led to many people who were suspected of being traveling robbers being hanged by said vigilante groups. By the time the 1940s rolled around, the town was in ruins. Charles and Sue Bovey ended up coming and buying up all the property they could, and the town now remains a tourist site, but not without some ghostly tales to spice up the story. One of the most well-known ghosts is that of a tall man in a blue Civil War soldier's coat, and he is often said to be found walking around the town's boardwalk at night, smoking as he strolls. Another one of the most famous sightings is that of a woman and a young girl. Little is known about their story, but they are often sighted by tourists. In our number 1 spot today, we have Deer Lodge. Deer Lodge at the old Montana Territorial Prison, now known as the Old Prison Museum, once held prisoners for over 100 years. It apparently was quite a lousy place during that time that was full and overcrowded and had terrible food, and it was just a very dangerous place. Many inmates took each other's lives here, and with all of the stories from when this was a prison, it's just clear that if any place were to be haunted, it would absolutely be this one. There even was a huge riot that broke out in 1959. Since this prison closed down in the 1970s, the tales haven't become any less grim. Visitors report hearing eerie noises, and some have even felt the sensation of being touched. Many people believe that the ghost of convicted killer Paul Eitner, known as Turkey Pete, still haunts cell number 1. He was incarcerated at the prison for 49 years before he passed away in 1967.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Haunted Mansion. Mansion, haunting, name a more iconic duo. Oh wait, this ghost story comes from the Luna Mansion in Las Lunas. It was built in 1880 by the wealthy Luna Otero family, and it stayed in their family for the next 90 years. Eventually, they sold it though, at which point it was turned into a restaurant. The new owners began to realize why the family may have sold the mansion now when guests first reported the hauntings. Perhaps that was what drove the Luna Otero family out of the property in the first place. A female ghost is the most common story and consistently appears in accounts of the building. They say she is wearing 1920s clothing and looks incredibly real. Now we're talking real as in she looks like flesh and bones, right there in front of you, not some sort of spectral wisp. The most common place she's seen in is an old rocking chair on the second floor. That's creepy. Investigators have proposed a theory that she's the ghost of Josefina Otero, a former owner of the house who is still sort of tending to the upkeep of the building even in death. She seems to have no interest to interact with the living. She simply sits and walks and sits and walks, eternally locked in the place she once called home. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Ghost Lovers. Legend says that the Double Eagle restaurant in the town of Mesilla is haunted by 2 teenage ghost lovers. Their names are Armando and Inez. Armando was the son of a wealthy family who owned the house, while Inez was one of the housemaids. The pair fell in love, but when Armando's mother found out, she fired Inez and banished her from the house. The village supported their love and helped them keep their romance a secret from the boys' parents. One day though, the mother came home early and found the two in Armando's bedroom. She was so outraged she grabbed her sewing shears and stabbed Inez to death. In the struggle, however, she accidentally stabbed her own son. Armando died 3 days later. His spirit joined Inez's spirit in the house, which went on to become the Double Eagle restaurant. These days, the employees and some customers of the restaurant have told tales of their encounters with the ghosts of Armando and Inez, the teenage ghost lovers. Moving on to number 8 now, we have La Mala Hora. In English, that name is translated as the evil hour or the evil one. She is said to be a wicked spirit, an evil demon that wanders the country roads of New Mexico at night. She walks and waits at crossroads until she finds someone traveling alone, then her time comes. She is usually first seen as a sort of large black lump, ever moving, ever changing shape. It can also change size rapidly, growing larger and smalling, a disorientating sight to see. Witnesses have likened this to a ghostly black shroud or a large black cotton ball. Anyone who looks at the evil one is driven insane. They are hypnotized, then paralyzed, and then when they are at their most defenseless, they are enveloped and suffocated. The next morning, the body is found dead at the side of the road. Locals are often reluctant to talk about all of this. Some only refer to it as an evil thing. Those that do talk say that the evil one seldom appears in human form, but when it does, it appears as a wicked old woman dressed in black with long flowing hair. Seeing her is considered to be a death omen. Encountering her is said to be a sign that the person or someone they know is going to die soon. Next up, number 7 now, we have the Haunted Chemo Theatre. This movie theatre opened in Albuquerque in 1927. A year after its construction, Oresti Bachichi, the owner, died suddenly, leaving the theatre to his sons. They turned it into a success, bringing in shows to the theatre to run alongside the movies. Eventually though, tragedy struck. In 1951, a 6-year-old boy named Bobby Darnell was killed when the boiler in the basement exploded, demolishing part of the lobby. Bobby had been standing on the balcony in the lobby with some of his friends. Suddenly he was scared by something on the screen and ran down to the staircase to the lobby. Just as he arrived, the boiler exploded, taking Bobby and part of the lobby with it. Legend says that Bobby's spirit has remained there ever since. They say he's now a trickster that causes problems during performances. In order to appease him, the cast of a play will actually hang donuts on the water pipes that run along the back wall of the theatre behind the stage. Often the treats are gone the next morning, or if there is a donut left, they'll find a tiny little bite mark on it. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the Dawson Coal Mine. In 1901, the Dawson Coal Mine opened and a railroad was built that linked the new town of Dawson with Tucumcari. The town of Dawson was born and grew. It had its own newspaper, theatre, hotel, hospital, and even a bowling alley. Amazing. On October 22nd, 1913, tragedy struck though when an explosion in the nearby mine killed 263 miners plus 2 rescuers. Less than 10 years later, another explosion killed 120 men. The town didn't fall apart though, it continued on all the way until 1950. When the mine closed in that year though, the company sold the whole town, buildings and all, to be carried off to other locations. All that remains today is Dawson's Cemetery, making it a ghost town in more than one way. Paranormal hunters have been drawn there for the past 70 years. They say they've seen misty apparitions and glowing lights near the cemetery gravestones. Legend says the lights are actually the headlights of the dead miners' helmets. Moving on now to number 5, we have La Lorna. Now some of you may have heard me talk about this in other urban legends videos. It's prevalent across the southern US states, and New Mexico is no different. In the New Mexico version, the weeping woman is the ghost of a mother who drowned her children. When she fully realized what she had done, she was overcome with grief. She would not eat and walked along the river in her white gown searching for her boys, hoping they would come back to her. She cried and cried endlessly as she roamed the riverbanks, and her gown became soiled and torn. When she continued to refuse to eat, she grew thinner and appeared taller until she looked like a huge walking skeleton. There, by the river, she finally died, and her spirit began to walk the same route that she did. Her weeping and wailing became a curse of the night, and the people who lived along the Santa Fe River were too afraid to go out after dark. They say she can still be seen drifting between the trees or floating on the river itself with her long white gown spread out across the waters, and she wails, always wailing and wailing and wailing. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Haunted Insane Asylum. Another iconic duo, I guess you could say. This one can be found in Albuquerque's North Valley, built in the 1900s. According to local legends, the facility was once run by an evil, twisted doctor who experimented on patients, even children. This would often result in their deaths. Witnesses say these murdered patients now haunt the very site, and that people feel a deep sense of oppression when they're nearby. More than that, some visitors have said the abandoned site is home to a creepy, dark figure that follows them around, the same one that has appeared in photographs over the years. In 2014, the local sheriff's office announced plans to send extra police officers there. Now, they said this was because of trespassers, but other people have theorized that the police may have been sent there to investigate the strange goings on, and their silence since then has been quite suspicious. And finally, number 1 now, we have the humming. I love this one. The Taos hum is perhaps the most famous hum in the world. Over the years, residents of the town of Taos have reported hearing a humming sound, a low frequency noise with a rhythmic pulse to it. Many people that live there say it sounds like a faraway diesel engine. It's no laughing matter either. In 1993, the citizens actually petitioned the American Congress to investigate the source of the humming. A report found that most hearers initially experience a hum with an abrupt beginning, as if some device had just been switched on. They say it caused dizziness, insomnia, disorientation, pressure on the ears, headaches, and even nosebleeds. Many of them thought there was some sort of connection between the humming and the US government. They thought they were hearing the sound of a covert military or naval operation. Although Taos has become the focus of the humming research, it's actually become a worldwide phenomenon. Take a look at the full story and see if you have any good theories.
Starting off at number 10 is the Old Wasu Club. What was once a high-class bar reserved for the wealthiest men in Virginia City, Nevada, is now one of the most haunted places in the state. You see, as the riches dwindled, so did the clientele that began to roam around, and soon enough, anyone with cash for a beer was welcome inside the saloon. And it didn't take long before the bar became a frequent hotspot visited by Johns looking for a cheap night of fun away from their wives. However, along with the new nightlife, the new patrons also brought lots of violence, with bar fights becoming a near nightly incident. The next thing you know, bar fights turned into fights with the working ladies. These women were being killed by the patrons if they wouldn't give them what they wanted. Today, the building is mostly used for commercial properties, but many ghosts have been reported haunting the once wealthy halls, especially the ghost of Lena. Legend has it that Lena was once one of the girls working in the bedrooms back in the day, and tragically she was killed by one of the Johns on the 3rd floor. But she's not the only ghost who roams the halls, as allegedly the man who killed Lena felt such guilt over what he did that he took his own life the very next day on the 2nd floor. To this day, his ghost is seen walking around looking for Lena and sometimes even crying out her name. Next up at number 9, the Clown Motel. There are a few things that rival my fear of dolls, but if there is one thing that comes close, it would probably be clowns. So a motel that's entire theme and brand is that it's filled head to toe with clowns actually sounds like my nightmare. I mean, how do people sleep in a room where creepy clown paintings and figurines stare at them in the dark? I will never understand. But But to make matters even worse, it's not just filled with freaky and terrifying clowns. I mean, truly that would be enough for me, but this place doubles down as a haunted motel as well. Long before the clown-filled motel opened its doors, this corner of town was reserved for the local graveyard. Being the Wild West and all, between the mining incidents and just general dangerous lifestyles, in about 10 years the cemetery was filled to capacity with 300 corpses. And it seems the spirits of these lost souls like to roam around the nearby hotel, terrifying guests as if clowns weren't getting the job done already. Patrons of the motel today frequently report seeing strange occurrences around the motel, such as hearing strange voices or doors slamming shut seemingly out of nowhere. So unless you are a clown-loving ghost enthusiast with a glutton for punishment, then I would suggest looking for a different place to stay on your visit. Coming in at number 8, the Pioneer Saloon. Opened in 1913, the Pioneer Saloon is the oldest bar in southern Nevada, and oh boy does it have a history. In its heyday, the saloon was no stranger to a bar fight, and as a result there are quite a few bullet holes lining the walls. But that is not the worst of it. It's said American actor Clark Gable frequented this establishment and was here waiting for Carole Lombard the night that a search party went out looking for her after a nearby plane crash. But the most tragic story is that of the bartender, who's said to have taken his own life right before a full house of patrons. As a result, many have said that the Pioneer Saloon is home to a whole mess of spirits. Of course, most famously the bartender, but also an entity referred to as Ruby, and even the ghost of Carole Lombard herself. Over the years, many paranormal investigators have popped in hoping to snag a recording of a strange noise or catch an unusual sighting on video, and believe it or not, they all claim to have been successful. But it's not just the experts. Patrons of the bar too claim to see doors slam shut or hear gunshots at night. But nothing is as scary as the apparition of the lonely bartender, who's said to terrify even the most skeptical guests who visit. Coming in at number 7, Yellow Jacket Mine. Widely believed to be the most haunted place across Nevada, this terrifying mine got its claim to fame over 150 years ago. Back in 1869, during the early hours of the morning, a huge fire broke out inside the mine, spreading up to the 800-foot level. Completely unaware, the day crew began their workday descending into the mine, and soon burning timbers started collapsing around them, trapping them inside. Despite firefighters arriving on the scene, the water pressure wasn't strong enough to extinguish the fire, and so the blaze continued for the next 3 weeks. Tragically, 39 miners lost their lives inside, but the strange thing is that only 34 bodies were ever recovered. Many over the years have wondered where the remains of the missing miners have gone, but one thing is for sure, all the men's spirits have stayed behind to haunt any who step foot on the property. Today, while you can't enter the mine itself, those that visit the area have reported seeing blue and white orbs floating around the main entrance. But most frightening of all are the screams and cries that can be heard echoing from the tunnels below. Coming in at number 6, Zack Baggins Haunted Museum. It may be a popular tourist attraction for Las Vegas visitors, but that doesn't mean it's not also a terrifyingly haunted museum. If you don't already know, Zack Baggins was once one of America's most famous TV ghost hunters and spent years collecting some of the most creepy, evil, and possessed trinkets this world has to offer. So what's an ex-ghost hunter to do with all his haunted memorabilia? Why, make a haunted museum, of course. If you dare visit the museum today, you'll find the items encased in glass and behind velvet ropes to keep you from touching them. But that doesn't stop the frightening spirits that haunt them from freaking out the patrons anyways. Inside the museum are 30 rooms, each filled with cursed items and riddled with haunted spirits, such as haunted dolls, a cursed rocking chair that is believed to be the inspiration behind the actual haunting in the movie The Conjuring, and the original die-book box. The die-book box, for those that are not aware, is believed to be the most haunted object on the planet. The die-book originates from Jewish folklore and is an evil entity that will possess the living and never leave. And as the legend goes, you are never to open the die-book box, otherwise the entity will escape and wreak havoc on anyone in its path.
Coming in at number 5, the Hoover Dam. This popular tourist destination spanning the Colorado River between Arizona and Nevada is revered as a spectacular feat of engineering. The construction on this behemoth began back in 1931 and it took 5 years to complete. But make no mistake, the history of this dam is not a squeaky clean slate. In fact, it's said that a whopping 112 people died during its construction, and that each and every one of them haunts the dam to this day. And if that wasn't dark enough, rumor has it that some of the workers who fell to their deaths were actually permanently encased in the dam's concrete. While the concrete may encase their physical bodies, their spirits are said to roam the grounds, terrifying anyone who they come into contact with. Many believe the spirits are angry to have lost their lives to the project and are there to take revenge on those who reap the benefits they never got to. Visitors and staff alike have reported cold spots, flickering electricity, equipment malfunctions, and finding missing items turn up in completely inexplicable places as soon as they are on the property. So just be careful if you ever decide to stop on by, you never know what could happen. Next up at number 4, the Overland Hotel and Saloon. Back in the day, the county of Pioche was a near lawless pit filled with danger and bloodshed. Over the years, it's said 72 souls were laid to rest across the county, and it's believed they all remain haunting the grounds to this day. Nicknamed Nevada's liveliest go town, Pioche might have a tamer facade during the day, but at night it's just as wild as it was back in the day. But the most terrifying spot of them all is said to be the Overland Hotel and Saloon. Although the Overland that stands today was rebuilt after a tragic fire in 1948, the spirits that haunt the grounds were not deterred. In fact, some say they even came back with a vengeance. So much so that a few years back, a crew for the TV show Ghost Adventures decided to try their hand and check out the rumors for themselves, and as they tell it, they recorded some of the most successful interactions with spirits at this hotel than anywhere else to date. To be clear, successful for a paranormal investigator pretty much translates to a thing of nightmares for anyone else. To top it off, guests continuously report witnessing shadowy figures lurking in the corners and slamming doors, and some guests even say they've been physically shaken by spirits until they awake. In fact, this place is so haunted that staff say you need to tell them if you want to avoid ghosts, as there are only a few select rooms that the spirits tend to stay away from. That being said, you are never truly safe from their presence. Coming in at number 3, the Silver Queen Hotel. Built back in 1876, the Silver Queen is just about the oldest hotel in the state, and not much has changed since the days it opened its doors. Beautifully restored to maintain its 19th century authenticity, it's not just the brass hardware that has stayed since the early days, but some of the patrons too. The most famous of which is the ghost of Rosie, believed to be the spirit of a woman of the night who was a frequent and favorite patron of the Silver Queen Hotel in its heyday, but who tragically took her own life in the very hotel she worked in. As the story goes, a few of her clients became violent towards her, and Rosie, depressed and seeing no way out of this life, decided to end it herself in her bathtub of room 11. To this day, it's said room 11 is haunted by her ghost, and those that have stayed there say they routinely hear rattling doorknobs, phantom footsteps, and disembodied voices echo throughout. But she isn't alone. Other frightening ghosts have also made their appearance in the wedding chapel's night cameras, and visitors swear to hear footsteps that sound like clacking along a wooden floor, despite that the hallways are carpeted. I mean, it's just creepy from top to bottom. Next up in our number 2 spot, the Goldfield Hotel. Although it now stands abandoned and boarded up, back in 1908 it was one of the hottest hotels in town, and it certainly has a spicy legend. As the story goes, back in the day there was a young woman named Elizabeth who caught the eye of owner George Wingfield. George became quite smitten with the lady and frequently swung by her room for a nighttime visit. However, Elizabeth soon fell pregnant, and George concerned for his reputation and business, lured her into room 109 at the hotel under false pretenses. Once inside, he chained Elizabeth to the radiator and forced her to stay in the room alone until she gave birth. But tragically, Elizabeth died in the room, and so George took it upon himself to deal with her. Situation, allegedly throwing it down a nearby mine shaft. Those who pass by the old hotel today say they can hear the sound of chains clanking against the radiator, and that Elizabeth can be seen walking around room 109 wearing a long white dress and weeping. Some even say they've heard her cries echo in the streets. But it's not just the weeping Elizabeth that haunts these evil halls, but the spirit of a former employee who took their life, as well as George himself. It's believed George remains there, tormenting the poor Elizabeth even in her death, making this place more and more evil as the hours go by. And last up in our number 1 spot is Circus Circus. Since its opening in 1968, Circus Circus has become one of the most famous hotel and casinos in Las Vegas. Over the years, it has of course been the meeting place of countless guests, but it has also been the location of a multitude of crimes, including multiple brutal killings. Most notorious is the tragic case of a mother and son who were found dead in room 123 in what appeared to be a brutal case of the mother taking his life and then her own. No one knows what led the mother to do such a thing, but it's said the pair frequently wander the hotel, and at night the loud screams are often heard echoing throughout the hall. Most terrifying though are the reports of people who have stayed in the room, as apparently the words "Help me" have appeared on numerous occasions scrawled across the bathroom mirror. But it wasn't just brutal killings among family members that went down in these hallowed halls. Believe it or not, there was also apparently a deep affiliation with the American mobster Anthony John Spilotro, who was put in charge of the gift shop to cover for his illegal business dealings. As you can imagine, with mobsters frequenting the establishment, there was quite a lot of bloodshed going on in the shadows, and so many of the other ghosts are suspected to have been the victims of Spilotro and his men. However, some even believe Spilotro himself, who was brutally killed by his employer, haunts the halls hoping to get revenge on the very people who put him in the grave all those years ago.
Next up at number 9 now, we have 13 Steps to Hell. East of Seattle lies the famous Maltby Cemetery. It's famous because it's said to have 13 steps that lead down to hell. Or at least they used to be there. Legend says that these stairs led down to the tomb of a wealthy local family. Now if someone walked down them, everything would go silent around them. When they reached the bottom step and turned around, they would have a vision of hell. People who were watching them in this moment reported seeing them collapse to their knees, screaming in terror at something they just couldn't see. The vision was said to drive the person insane. If it was children who went down these steps and saw hell, many of them were said to return almost in a coma, never able to speak again. If this sounds too creepy, well, don't worry, it's been reported that the steps no longer exist. They were bulldozed or filled in with concrete years ago. That hasn't stopped the legend from spreading though, and many people still visit the cemetery each year and try and unearth these steps to take a trip down to hell themselves. Next up at number 8 now, we have Mount Rainier's Sorcer. In 1947, a pilot discovered a US Marine transport plane that had crashed in Mount Rainier National Park. After reporting it, he took off again on his journey to Yakima. Suddenly, he saw a bright flashing light in the night sky. He was worried that he had flown dangerously close to another plane, but found nobody else nearby. Then more bright lights appeared. One of the lights passed in front of him. He described them as crescent-shaped objects that looked like saucers skipping on the water. It was this description that literally gave us the term of flying saucer. He reported the story to his family and friends, and then that story began to spread all over the country. Now, despite its fame, nobody has been able to explain what he saw that night, and if there really is something strange going on at Mount Rainier. Moving on to number 7 now guys, we have SR 900. That's the name of this road that runs through Washington from Issaquah to Renton. For starters, people just say it's very creepy in general. The road runs through a lot of dark forests. Over the years there's been a lot of car accidents at night there because the roads wind precariously through these dark areas with no street lights at all. If you drive along it in the early hours of of the morning, there's a good chance you'll find that you're the only person there. Many people report a very creepy feeling washing over them on this road. Sometimes this takes on a physical manifestation, like a person appearing by the side of the road as fog swirls around them. It's a golden oldie, that one. It appears everywhere. Never get tired of it. Or maybe you are. Moving on to number 6 now there, we have Bigfoot. According to some reports, Washington has the highest number of Bigfoot sightings at 537 since records began. That's over 100 more than the second place state, its southern neighbor California. Now, in case you don't know what or who a Bigfoot is, it's a hairy, upright walking ape-like creature in North American folklore. It's said to have an almost mythical quality and dwells only in the wilderness, leaving almost nothing behind besides footprints and tufts of hair. One of the most famous Bigfoot encounters in Washington occurred in 1924 near Mount St. Helens. A group of gold prospectors claimed to have fought a group of 7-foot-tall Bigfoots who threw boulders at them. They said these giant creatures moved like humans but must have weighed over 400 pounds. One of the men fired his gun at the creatures, toppling one off a cliff. That night they heard huge stones slamming against their cabin and felt giant bodies hitting against the walls and doors. As you already know, this certainly wasn't the first Bigfoot encounter in the state of Washington. Next up at number 5 now, we have the Oxford Saloon. I found this story from a Reddit user who said that this saloon is just a few blocks down from their workplace. The Oxford Saloon is a bar that's been in the town of Snohomish for over 100 years. Legend says that many years ago, a policeman called Henry was stabbed to death there while trying to break up a fight. They say his ghost remained attached to the building, harassing guests and scaring them at the bottom of the basement steps. In modern times, the second floor of the building became offices, but they say the saloon ghost still remains there too. This includes a man in a bowler hat and 2 female spirits, Kathleen, the madame for the brothel back in the day, and Amelia, one of her ladies of the night. They say that a long time ago, Amelia's body was mysteriously found in a closet, all cramped up and stuffed in there. Horrible stuff. These days, paranormal investigators report strange experiences at the saloon involving ghostly voices and strange images that show up in photographs. Next up at number 4 now, we have Dryden Hall. This is a famous hall that first opened in 1965 at Spokane University. Now, despite its relatively young age, it's already gained a bit of a reputation as a haunted place within the area. The story goes that on the outer wall of the north wing, a mysterious screaming face can be seen at night. Now, initially, people just brushed it off as a trick of the light because it could only be seen at night. The thing is though, the groundskeepers reportedly kept changing the position of the lights, but the face would always appear. These days, every single year, a new batch of students have the story passed on to them, and still the screaming face remains. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the trees. Olympic National Park is a massively popular tourist site for those visiting Washington. You can see why, I'm sure, from these pictures, but locals have always told stories about an unsettling feeling they get among some parts of the dense undergrowth there. Many of the famous trails are said to be haunted by a powerful unknown entity. Believers in this often point to a very strange event that took place there in February 2018. Park officials were baffled one morning to find an extremely powerful force had knocked down over 100 trees. Now, what's also strange is the fact that weather data shows nothing out of the ordinary occurred the night before. Many of the trees were also broken near the base, which would require an immense amount of force. The amount of trees that had gone down was inconsistent too. In some areas, nearly every tree was down, but in other areas, half the trees were untouched. It was a mystery. Let's hope some of you guys have a rational explanation for all of this. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Winged Man. By all intents and purposes, Marina High School in Everett, Washington is a normal school of some 3,000 students. Many of the students are aware though of a particularly strange urban legend there. They say that in the school, around midnight, the lights are supposed to still be on, but on some nights, the lights will just shut off. If you watch from outside of the school, they say you'll get the feeling that someone is watching you from inside, and then you'll see it, the eyes. Just a set of floating eyes. It's too dark to see a body, and then the eyes will start to glow. Legend says that if you keep staring for long enough, the glow will begin to illuminate the rest of the body. You will see a man with wings. There aren't many reports of what happens after people see the winged man. I imagine they just turn around and run. And finally, number 1 now, we have Mels Hole. Years ago, a man named Mel Waiters called into the Art Bell radio show claiming he had discovered an infinitely deep hole on his property near Ellensburg. He said that he tied fishing lines together and continued lowering it down the hole. It reached 15 miles apparently without hitting any ground. That's a depth of some 80,000 feet. It gets crazier though. Mel claimed that the hole had the ability to restore life to dead animals. You heard me. He told the story of a man's dead dog that was thrown into the pit and then found walking around alive soon after. People became obsessed with finding this hole, but Mel refused to tell people where it was. A while later, a local paper reported that no man named Mel Waiters even existed in the area, and Mel wasn't even around to defend his own existence, as he was never heard from again. Fell down the hole. Who knows? The whole thing is very strange.
Number 10. Captain Cook Hotel. The Captain Cook Hotel, of course located in Anchorage, Alaska, is said to be haunted by the ghost of one John Jack Sturgis, who was a former chef at the hotel who died in a fire back in 1986. What a start to a list already. We're just in the ghost depths already. Guests and staff alike have reported various paranormal experiences such as unexplained voices, cold spots, and the sound of footsteps in empty hallways, which, I don't know, all signs point to ghosts when you put those in a row. Some guests have even reported seeing the apparition of a man in a chef's uniform. I'm not trying to laugh. That's just, imagine that, you know what I mean? 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. You're like, chef, may I? Could you turn off the light? Thanks. Like a ghost wearing a chef's hat. It's like, that's only funny. That is an only funny thing. That is from Luigi's Mansion. He's just smacking the spatula all night looking at you. He's like, how do you like your eggs? I'm like, that's so scary. Despite these reports, the hotel remains a popular destination for visitors to Anchorage who are drawn to its unique haunted history. Apparently people want to see a ghost wearing a chef's hat. Honestly, now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to see that too. But, you know, knock on wood. Number 9, the Golden North Hotel. The Golden North Hotel sounds like a Game of Thrones classic. There have been reports of paranormal activity on the 3rd floor of the Golden North Hotel in Skagway, Alaska. I like when it's specific, when it has a certain floor or certain room. That's how you know it's legit. Guests and staff have reported hearing strange noises, seeing apparitions, and feeling unexplained cold spots on the floor. I guess they're walking around with bare feet. Bare feet in a hotel? That's brave. Some have even claimed to have encountered the ghost of a former employee named Mary, who is said to haunt the hotel. All these ghosts that are haunting their past work establishments. If I die, I'm gonna haunt this place for sure. While the hotel embraces its haunted history and offers guided ghost tours for visitors, which is an odd flex, it's worth noting that paranormal experiences are subjective and not everybody may have the same encounter, okay? So, what's fun to some is haunting to others, so tread carefully in the ghost world. Don't make fun of people online, you know? Some are really afraid of ghosts with chef hats, so. Number 8, Gecko Lodge and Trading Post. There are reports and stories about Gecko Lodge and trading posts being haunted. There's a lot online. This is probably a very real one. Some visitors and staff have claimed to have experienced unusual occurrences and paranormal activity at this lodge, which was supposed to be a winter getaway, but now it's just a Stanley Kubrick classic. According to the stories, the ghost of a woman dressed in 1800s style clothing has been seen walking, or floating rather, through the lodge. And strange noises and footsteps have been heard in empty rooms. It's always an old-fashioned ghost too. It's never a ghost wearing a polo. You ever notice that? It's always like an old Victorian woman. Like why? Why can't we have a newer ghost? Slim pickings on the attire in heaven, I guess. Must be. They're like, hey, we have an old saggy robe and that's about it. Here you go. Go haunt a hotel. There have also been reports of objects moving on their own, doors opening and closing by themselves, and again, cold spots in certain areas on the floor, which, I don't know, it could be lousy heating really, if you ask me. It's Alaska, right? Number 7, Westmark Fairbanks Hotel. There have been numerous reports of paranormal activity in room 277 of the Westmark Fairbanks Hotel in Alaska. Again, I like when it's a specific room. That for me seals the deal. It's like 1408. I'm in. I'm locked in. Now I'm a believer. It's so eerie. The room is said to have been haunted by the ghost of a woman who allegedly took her own life there many years ago, which is sad and terrifying. Guests who have also stayed in that room have reported feeling uneasy, or, my personal nightmare, they feel as if they're being watched all night. Yeah, just eyes in a painting watching you, I guess. Sometimes they even hear strange noises or voices and seeing unexplained movements of objects. Those classic 3 ghost things. Some guests have also claimed to have seen the ghostly figure of a woman in the room or in the hallway. So that's good. This one really hits all the marks. 5 stars for paranormal activity, really. Number 6, the Hilton Anchorage Hotel. Guests and staff members have both reported seeing apparitions, hearing strange noises, and experiencing other unusual phenomenon in various parts of the hotel. Phenomenon? I always add the N there. I'm not sure which one it is. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas of this hotel is said to be the 3rd floor, particularly rooms 309 and 317. 2 for 1 package. It's the north and south sides are haunted, but everything in the middle, Yeah, you're good. Just don't explore. Guests who have stayed in these rooms have both reported seeing ghostly apparitions and experiencing other strange occurrences, like lights turning on and off by themselves, and the feeling of being touched by an unseen presence. What a terrible, annoying ghost. I think I would rather see a ghost than have them with the lights all night long. You know what I mean? How annoying is that? You have to get out of your bed and keep shutting it off. That's the worst. That's worse than just being haunted, really. It is a Hilton, so it's probably at least a decent sleep, you know? They're good over there. They got a good, nice breakfast setup in the morning. It's all about the departure the next day. That's all it is for hotels. You could have ghosts all night, lights flickering, but you have a juice bar the next morning? I'll forget about the whole ordeal. We're good, 5 stars. I'm coming back. Number 5, the Van Gilder Hotel. Located in Seward, Alaska, the Van Gilder Hotel, I mean, first of all, this thing is tiny. It looks like a joke. It looks like a cartoon police station. How is this place haunted? It looks like a place Wreck-It Ralph would have a field day with. Small but mighty, I guess. The hotel, which was built in 1916, has a long history of ghosts and ghouls. Numerous reports of paranormal activity over the years. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas is the room 202, where guests have reported unexplained movements of objects and again, the feeling of being watched, which is so scary. I don't like that. It's the worst. There have also been reports of ghostly apparitions in other parts of the hotel, including the lobby and the stairwell. The lobby, these ghosts are getting brave. I mean, not even letting us check in and you're already moving shit around trying to scare us. That's very brave. Okay, you're excited. We get it. The most famous ghost associated with the Van Gilder Hotel is that of a woman named Fanny Guthrie Bame, who apparently died in the hotel back in the 1950s. Guests have reported seeing Fanny's ghostly figure on the 2nd floor. That's where she allegedly fell to her death from the balcony, which is so sad. If I didn't see that again though, as a ghost, I'd be like, oh, this is a terrible TikTok loop scenario. Number 4, Inlet Tower Hotel and Suites. Okay, this one is very large and it looks very haunted, okay? It doesn't look like a mini police station. This one's very Kubrick. This hotel, which was built in 1952, it already has a long history. It's seen a few deaths in its rooms, and of course, to follow, there have been numerous reports of ghostly apparitions over the years. Apparitions, I'm mixing it up now, I'm just saying random words. One of the most commonly reported haunted areas of the hotel is the 15th floor, way high up in here. This is haunted, where guests have heard strange moaning noises. It's kind of funny. That's terrifying, don't get me wrong, but like, that's kind of like, okay, who's doing that? Which room is that coming from, you know? Feeling cold spots and seeing ghostly figures walk around the hallways at night. It's your classic haunted hotel. The most famous ghost associated with the Inlet Tower Hotel is that of a woman who allegedly jumped to her death from the 15th floor. That is really high up. That's so sad. Guests have reported seeing her ghostly figure on the 15th floor, as well as in the hotel's elevator, which is better. That's definitely a step. As long as she's in the elevator this time around, we're good. Keep her in there, not outside on the scary balcony. Inside where it's safe. Number 3, the Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. A haunted hospital. Nice. I couldn't imagine a more vulnerable place to see a ghostly figure. Excuse me, can I get some more jello? Lights are flickering, some chicks floating. You're like, I'm gonna check out. The Fairbanks Memorial Hospital in Alaska. I mean, the hospital, first of all, it was built in 1972, and it has a long history of, well, hospital stuff. A lot of deaths, also a lot of new life. So silver lining, I guess. That's a good thing. One of the most commonly reported areas is the intensive care unit, the ICU. That's what the ghosts say. They say, hey, I see you right there. I'll watch you all night. Both staff members and patients have reported hearing voices, feeling someone touch them who wasn't actually there, and seeing ghosts of past patients walk around the hallways at night. That's the scariest thing I've ever heard of. Past patients, just like... Visitors and staff members have reported seeing a ghostly figure, like a very specific ghostly figure in the ICU, as well as other parts of the hospital. So, could be a past nurse, could be someone who used to work there, maybe someone who was killed while they were building it. I don't know. It's a good ghost. It's a hospital good ghost. That's one you maybe don't mind bumping into at night. Number 2. Ice worms. Yeah, need I say more ice worms, I guess. That's a terrifying thing to look at now that you're in Alaska. I'm dodging these suckers all spring. Now I gotta worry about winter too? God, I hate worms. I'm Canadian. We don't need any ice worms, okay? We're all set. The only time a worm ever lives life in a glacial ice form is in Alaska. How impressive is that? One and only place you'll find ice worms. All your life you see worms shrivel up and then fade away on the sidewalk, but I've never ever seen one near ice. They're supposed to run out of fuel and then die off, but ice worms, these things just keep going. They get stronger. Should that icy temperature rise, however, above freezing, well, that's when these worms die off. It's the way we see worms go normally. They shrivel up and, you know, go, ugh. They get stronger the longer that they wait and plan. Honestly, these worms are kind of cool. If you're ever in Alaska and you see ice worms, comment down below. These are like Captain America worms. I'm weirdly into bugs and these things sound like they're from space, so Had to include them. Ice worms. Number 1. The Eldred Rock Lighthouse. We'll finish up with a haunted lighthouse. Not the most exciting, but I'm doing my best here. It's that or ice worms. Both are pretty thrilling, okay? What's creepier than an island full of shipwrecks? You tell me. The lighthouse, which was built in 1906, is located on a remote island in the Lynn Canal, and it was in operation until 1973. One of the most notorious shipwrecks was the Clara Nevada steamship. Now, in 1898, she smashed into Eldred Rock, burst into flames instantly before sinking into the icy depths, probably surrounded by ice worms. The disaster took 75 lives, and it's also believed that hundreds of pounds of gold were on board when this ship sank. So it was a curse. It was for sure cursed. All that gold, that many people died. I smell a curse. I know it. One of the most commonly reported ghost occurrences at the Eldred Rock Lighthouse is the sighting of a ghostly woman, again, you guessed it, wearing all white. The classic Victorian gown. Legend has it the woman was a former lighthouse keeper's wife who died on the island and has remained there in spirit. Remained there. I guess she's stuck there for all of eternity, but we'll say she remained there. And if that's not enough for you, the lighthouse has been the subject of paranormal investigations. And some investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena. Yeah, they got EVPs on this island, so it's the real deal. That's how you know. Remind me to avoid this lighthouse at all costs. Great, cheers.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Alaska Triangle. Turns out that Alaska has its very own Bermuda Triangle. This is referred to as the area in the southeast, to the northern Borough region, to the western metropolis of Anchorage. Apparently, more than 20,000 people have gone missing in this area. That's just in the past half century alone. And these people go missing without a trace. No one knows what happens to them or where they went. So some believe that this area is home to mythological type beasts that kidnap and then eat these people. Whereas others believe that this area is home to some dark vortex that sucks these poor souls in. Regardless of what you believe in, one thing is for sure. This triangle has and continues to take the lives of many. In our 9th spot, we have the UFO Base. And if you guys are still watching, hopefully smash that like button. Let me know in the comments below that you're still here. Hi. It is believed that Alaska is home to a top secret UFO base, even though it's not that top secret if people claim that there is one. Anyways, Mount Hayes is the highest mountain in the eastern Alaskan range. That's the place where people believe extraterrestrials and UFOs are located. It all started in the 1940s when a number of UFOs were spotted in that area. Eventually, the sightings got more and more frequent that the FBI was called in to investigate the area. And the sightings haven't stopped. There have been hundreds of sightings throughout the years. In fact, Pat Price, a former CIA remote viewer, even said that the mountain, and I quote, housed one of the aliens' largest bases. So this urban legend might not be so much of a legend. In our 8th spot, we have the Captain Cook. This is a cute little hotel located in downtown Anchorage. According to legends though, this hotel is extremely haunted. Apparently a woman took her life in the hotel in the 70s, and her ghost can be seen wandering the halls. In particular, she is said to haunt the woman's restroom there. Visitors also claim that doors will open and close on their own and the lights will flicker on and off by themselves. According to locals, this woman is bound to the hotel and doesn't know how to escape it. So she's just stuck there, aimlessly wandering the halls for eternity. I don't know why she would haunt the bathroom though. Like, that's not a place I would hang around in if I was a ghost. Moving on at number 7, we have Kute. A Kute is said to be an evil earth spirit that appears in the form of a black dog that's completely hairless, but it does have hair on its little feet. But only its feet. Apparently this dog then stalks travelers at night and has been known to attack and kill them. Those that have apparently seen this spirit say they saw dog tracks in the snow that then disappeared right in front of their own eyes. That's apparently a sign that the Kute is nearby. In Inuit legend, the Kute is said to be a spirit of death. Others believe that it's a real-life cryptid. Scariest part? Apparently, just by looking at this creature, they can cause victims to become disoriented and spiral into madness. They then will become lost and perish from hypothermia. The Kute waits until this moment and then attacks and eats its victim. In our 6th spot, we have Motherload Lodge. Located in Palmer, this lodge is said to be very haunted. In fact, it literally has been known to spook even the hardest of souls. According to local legend, this hotel is haunted by a number of different spirits. Most famously, there's this black apparition ghost, given that name because it always appears as a black cloudy apparition. People have seen this spirit wandering the grounds. Another ghost is a figure that's dressed in black. This figure likes to show itself in mirror reflections. Just sounds like Bloody Mary to me. No thank you. On top of that, people have reported hearing strange noises in the middle of the night and have seen curtains open and close by itself. It's a good place to go ghost hunting, but a bad place to spend the night. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the aliens. In late fall through winter to early spring, the northern lights can be seen on nights with clear skies. I've always wanted to see the northern lights, like they're quite beautiful. But according to a weird urban legend, it states that the northern lights are produced by aliens. Yeah, you heard me. Legend goes that aliens create these beautiful lights so that they can then fly through the air undetected. In fact, cosmonaut Ivan Wagner was filming the northern lights when he captured a UFO flying by. Plus, there's already a ton of UFO and alien sightings in Alaska. So, could it be that this legend is true? That the aliens are behind this colorful display of lights? Moving on to number 4, we have the Sea Monster. Located in the waters near Kodiak Island lurks a close relative to the Loch Ness Monster. It has since been given the name the Kodiak Sea Monster. It all started in 1971 when a group of fishermen set sail. That's when they encountered this massive sea beast. One of the fishermen said, and I quote, "We don't know what it was, but it had a grayish color and we couldn't see any fins or any tail, and it never made any noise. It would just come up and you could see the head and part of the body." Another man described it as being 30 feet long and had a head on it that looked kinda like a horse. Then in 2002, it was seen again, this time by a different group of fishermen. They described it as having a massive head and neck. They couldn't tell if the head was a foot in diameter or 3 feet in diameter. To this day, the beast has never been caught, so maybe it's still out there, continuing to scare local fishermen. In our 3rd spot, we have the Alaskan Vortex. So let's talk more about this Alaskan triangle. The missing persons rate in that area is more than twice the national average. It's insane. As I mentioned briefly, some people believe that a vortex is to blame for all the disappearances. Legend goes that the vortex basically sucks people in and then transports them to different dimensions. Let's look at some of the facts used to support this theory. For starters, apparently the area has a huge number of magnetic anomalies. It throws off compasses and has even made people feel sick. A number of rescue workers that have gone into the area have claimed to feel disoriented, lightheaded, and have experienced auditory hallucinations. This could be evidence that a vortex is present. Moving on to number 2, we have the Bigfoot. Alaska apparently has its own Bigfoot. They call it the Hairy Beast, and apparently it lives in Port Chatham. It all started back in the 1930s when a number of people went missing in this area. In 1931, a man named Andrew Kamluck went out logging. He was later found dead in the forest with a bad blow to his head. Around the same time, another man was out in the area and randomly disappeared without a trace. And then another man named Tom Larson was out chopping wood when he saw this hairy beast on the beach. The creature was just standing there staring at him. It didn't attack him though. There are more stories that involve people mysteriously disappearing or dying in the area, and they blame it on this mysterious hairy beast. In fact, on a number of other occasions, people have seen like weird man-like beast footprints in the mud, which they believe is from this terrifying creature. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Kushtaka. Otters are cute little cuddly animals that are pretty innocent, right? Well, not in Alaska. You gotta be careful with the otters out there, because they might actually be shape-shifting creatures known as Kushtaka. The Kushtaka is said to be a cross between an otter and a man. In some stories, these creatures are said to be helpful, but in most stories, they are deceptive and evil creatures. They tend to mimic the screams of women and children so that fishermen will be like, "Oh my god, someone's out there, I need to help them, I'll save them," and then they go to help and they just get killed. They are also said to appear when people are vulnerable. maybe there's a lost fisherman or hiker or someone that's injured. They'll come and be like, we're here to help you, to rescue you. Instead, they'll lead you deeper into the wilderness and either tear you to pieces or turn you into a Kushtaka to prevent your soul from ever being able to reincarnate. Wow, that's terrifying. Plus, the fact that they can also shapeshift into an otter is really weird. Like, so maybe you're out on the water and you're like, oh, cute, look at that little otter. And then all of a sudden, it's like, psych, and then grabs you and pulls you into the water. Watch out.
Hold on to your throats. At number 10, we have the choking ghost. Is sleep paralysis more common in Hawaii, or are the legends of the choking ghosts true? It seems that many Hawaiians have reported being choked in their sleep. Now, some say that they feel as if someone or something is pressing on their chest and trying to suffocate them. Reports go that as people panic, they find that they simply can't scream. Just as they think they're about to die, the ghost leaves and they can breathe again. How awful. I've had sleep paralysis before, but this does sound pretty different. A police officer at the Honolulu airport even said that some of his fellow officers had been attacked by the choking ghost there, so maybe it travels. Is this the origin of the choking demon? At number 9, we have the Haunted House of Honolulu. A townhouse in Honolulu on 8th Avenue and Harding has a dark past that has spawned the legend of a deep haunting, a spooky ghoul. It is said that a man murdered his family at the property and that he buried their bodies somewhere on the site. While the bodies of his wife and son were found, his daughter's never was. The house seemed to absorb bad energy, and anyone who moved there after the murders quickly left. It is said that one of the last people who dared to live in the property was a woman who moved in with 2 of her friends. It seemed that the spirit took particular offense to them, tackling and trying to strangle them. A police officer was called and they seemed to witness one of the women being choked to death by an invisible hand. Unfortunately, she couldn't be saved. This one is a cross between a Japanese and a Hawaiian urban legend. At number 8, we have the Mujina. It seems that when a number of Japanese people came over to Hawaii, they brought Mujina over with them. Thanks, Japan. Mujina is a shapeshifter who is able to assume human form. The legend in Japan is that the creature would shapeshift into a monk and travel dark roads at night, stopping strangers and asking them for a cup of tea. Honestly, sounds pretty pleasant. Although actually, apparently not pleasant at all. Legend has it that in 1959, a woman at a drive-in cinema in Kahala saw a Mujina in the washroom. At first, she thought it was another woman, but she thought it was weird that she'd been spending so long combing her hair. When she looked closer, she noticed that the woman had no features, which was really strange. It seems that the woman who saw her was so freaked out by the faceless figure that she had a nervous breakdown. The sighting was shrugged off as a rumor, but the woman many years later once again recounted her tale on a local radio station. Since then, there have been a number of sightings of the shape-shifting beast. Coming in at number 7, we have the Menahoon fairies. The Menahoon are a kind of hybrid of gnomes or leprechauns and fairies in other folk tales. It seems that in Hawaii, legend has it that the Menahoon are 2 feet tall human-like creatures that have a very cheeky streak. I love a cheeky streak, to be honest with you. Kind of like leprechauns, they're said to be great builders. It's said that they even built some of the ancient homes in Hawaii, as well as being credited for forming the famous lake on Linhu Island. It is said that the Menahoon live deep in the lush forests where they live and work. They are also said to emerge and splash in the lakes and oceans late at night. If you hear the sounds of stones plopping in water but see nobody around, it is probably a close-by Menahoon. Sounds like you want to meet them, right? Well, actually, you're wrong. While they do sound sweet and benevolent, beware. If you ever stumble across one unawares, you will immediately be turned to stone. Or so the legend says. Coming into number 6, we have the waiting ghost of Honolulu Airport. It is said that Honolulu Airport is haunted by the desperate ghost of a jilted lover. The ghostly apparition is said to be of a blonde woman who is only ever seen from behind, looking out of a window or looking forlorn at the arrival's gate. The woman is said to wear a long white dress and has been spotted by many airport staff and passengers. The story is that she fell in love with a man who visited the island and promised to marry her, but one day he took off on a flight out of Hawaii, never to return. The woman sadly was said to have committed suicide, but her spirit could not rest and instead kept on waiting at the airport. She was just standing there, waiting for her lover to return, but sadly he never does. The police working at the airport get a handful of calls each year asking asking them to investigate an unresponsive blonde woman with no luggage. Soon, they realize that actually she's the woman from the urban legend. Airport officer Ray Durapan spoke about the ghost, saying, "Every time I get the call, I get the heebie-jeebies. You just get this eerie feeling. Every time we checked it out, we never saw her, but still, I respect stories like that. You have to. You just respect them." I think that's it. You really are supposed to respect a ghost and just give them a bit of distance, right? Coming into number 5, we have the ghosts of Pearl Harbor. You don't need to believe in ghosts to accept that Hawaii is still haunted by Pearl Harbor. For those who have visited the scene of one of the United States' greatest devastations, they will tell you of an eerie, loaded atmosphere. On December the 7th, 1941, 2,335 military personnel and 68 civilians were killed when Japanese bomber planes launched a surprise attack on United States naval base at Pearl Harbor. This is on the island of Oahu. Not only is the history felt, but to this day people still believe that ghosts haunt the area. Some even say a ghost plane was recorded flying towards the spot a year later during war years. The plane was seen on an American naval radar as fighter jets were scrambled in response. When they were up there in the skies, they found a P-40 fighter. Now this is a plane which had last been used by the American side on the day of the Pearl Harbor attack. The plane was bullet-ridden and went down. When the wreckage was intercepted, there was no trace of the pilot. Was this a ghost plane? Recently, Pearl Harbor was featured on an episode of Ghost Hunters, and it seems investigators heard some worrying things in 2 airplane hangars near the spot of the attack. Coming in at number 3, we have the goddess of fire, Pele. In Hawaii, it is believed that there is a goddess of fire, lightning and volcanoes by the name of Pele. The story goes that she originated in Tahiti but was sent away by her father because of her difficult temper and her desire to seduce her sister's husband. Babe, no. It seems that all fiery disasters in Hawaii are blamed on Pele and explained as a reaction to her having a feud with a lover. She doesn't just stay in the volcanoes either. She's said to wander the lands in female form, tall, young and beautiful, or sometimes as an old woman with a white dog when she wants to test people. If people are kind to her in disguise, she rewards them. If they're not, she destroys their homes. It is considered to be very bad luck to remove any rocks from the island, so if you visit Hawaii, do make sure you don't take any of it back with you, if not you might feel Pele's curse. It is also considered highly disrespectful to prod lava as it flows or throw anything at it. In order to appease Pele, residents leave leaves and flowers on cracks previously caused by lava flow. In May 2018, Hawaiian residents left offerings for Pele as lava flowed down from a mountain. The Killer volcano destroyed homes near the base. Was she angry? Locals think, yeah. This one is also related to the fiery temptress, but more specifically to one of her lovers. I actually guess this is totally more bizarre than it is scary, but I wanted to include it anyway. Finally, coming into number 1, this is one of the most prevalent Hawaiian urban legends and pretty scary. We have the Hawakapo, the Torchbearers. Often called the Night Marchers, the Hawakapo are ancient Hawaiian warriors that are now jobbed with escorting newly dead spirits to the afterlife. They're a bit like a more musical band of Grim Reapers. The Torchbearers walk the land carrying, you guessed it, torches, but also weapons and drums which they play and chant. There have been sightings of the Torchbearers, but if you ever come across one, you must not look them in the eye, as they may march you to the afterlife too. The only way you can be saved is if one of your relatives is in the tribe who can vouch for you. You know that the Hawakapo are nearby if you hear distant drumming, hear conch shell horns, and see faint torchlights, and even smell a faint foul odour. Rumours and reports of Torchbearer sightings have been rife over the years and are ingrained in Hawaiian folklore.
Number 10. Satan's Castle, San Bernardino. Yes, this place is called Satan's Castle, and it's a no from me. Satan's Castle sits on a mountainous region that is filled with both religious and satanic lore dating back to the 19th century. There are said to be underground tunnels linking to various points of interest across the mountain, which were used during the Prohibition era. These tunnels were created mostly for transportation and smuggling booze, but also served for darker purposes. One of these tunnels is rumored to connect a Catholic church to Satan's Castle. It is said to have been the grounds for dark ritualistic practices, which included both human and animal sacrifices, along with other dark ceremonies. Not to mention, inside one of the rooms, a pentagram used to be painted on the ground. Local Christians painted over it with the John 3:16 verse, but the pentagram always bled through. Definitely sounds satanic to me, and I will not be visiting there. Number 9. Preston Castle, Ione. The Preston School of Industry, also known as Preston Castle, was a reform school that opened in June 1894 and was considered one of the oldest and best known reform schools in the United States. The boys there grew their own food, raised livestock, and learned farming trades. Additionally, there was a print shop, bakery, and cobbler shop where the boys could learn skills for self-preservation in the real world. The superintendent controlled the life inside the school, and discipline was extreme. Starvation, isolation, and public paddling and lashings, and severe strategies were common at Preston. Now, this school has seen a lot of death. There are 17 men buried on the school grounds because they died there. Samuel Goins had his life ended after attempting to escape from the school. In 1950, Preston's head housekeeper, Anna Corbin, was beaten to death in the school's basement as well, and they never found out who did it. Employees and visitors believe that these young men are still haunting the school, which only closed in 1960, by the way. Those who have toured the grounds since have reported many strange sights and sounds, slamming doors, falling objects, disembodied voices, and ghostly physical contact. Number 8. Camp Pendleton, Area 41, San Diego. Camp Pendleton is a coastal Marine Corps base with a dark history. This place is divided up into sections, and Area 41 is haunted. Locks have been tampered with, furniture displaced, items gone missing, and strange noises are heard throughout the camp. Many think that this is done by one broken-hearted Marine in particular. This man was in love and had recently asked his girlfriend to marry him. After she had said yes, he thought his life was going great, but it didn't last long. The Marine was in his housing unit when his fiancée got a hold of him and told him that she was ending the relationship. He was so upset that he ended his life in a second-story room of the barracks. Now, some Marines are convinced his spirit remains in the area and haunts Area 41 in particular. A general feeling of unease is common here, and to this day, Marines claim that they hear the faint sound of a man softly humming the Jeopardy game show theme song around the grounds. I'm sorry. What? Number 7. The Hotel de Coriando, San Diego. Hotel de Coriando is a historic hotel that opened in 1888. Kate Morgan has haunted this hotel since 1892, the year she checked in and awaited the arrival of her husband. The two were traveling con artists, and not surprisingly, her husband never showed up, and 4 days later, Kate was found dead at the bottom of an outdoor staircase leading to the Coronado Beach. Today, those who check into Kate's room, which is now room 3312, have had spooky experiences to say the least. Curtains blowing even though the windows are closed, objects moved by unseen hands, murmuring sounds, and even sightings of Kate walking down the hallways and peering out the windows have all been reported. Her ghost is often seen both in the hotel and on the beach. Now, room 3519, formerly room 3502, is also haunted. Once a maid's room, it's been the site of numerous paranormal occurrences, such as objects moving around by themselves. Number 6. The Whaley House, San Diego. The Whaley House is the oldest brick structure in Southern California and was the home of Thomas Whaley and his family. At various times, it also housed Whaley's General Store, San Diego's second county courthouse, and the first commercial theater in San Diego. The house has witnessed more history than any other building in the city, and it is extremely haunted. One of the most infamous ghosts there is the spirit of Yankee Jim Robinson. Yankee Jim was hanged in the gallows where the house now stands in 1852 after being convicted of stealing horses. Thomas Whaley himself, who owned and lived in the house with his family years later, said they could hear heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Now, visitors have reported cold spots and the feeling of their chest and throat tightening within the home. Others claim to have seen Yankee Jim too, an apparition that appears and disappears when you get too close. Today, and for many years, visitors to the house have also reported seeing Thomas. They usually see him wearing a frock coat and pantaloons standing on the second-story landing. Others have seen his wife Anna, usually floating around in the garden or the downstairs room. Her ghost, which appears white and billowy, seems to just drift about and then disappears. Number Number 5. Winchester Mystery House, San Jose. Now after finding out what this place is, I really want to visit here. I mean, just by the name Mystery House, it's cool. Now some backstory on the house: Sarah Winchester lived a tragic yet interesting life. She married William Wirt Winchester in 1862, who was a very wealthy man. Sadly though, her husband, mother, and father-in-law all passed away within the same year. To deal with her grief, she moved to California after gaining a large inheritance from her husband. Then on top of all of that, Sarah was being haunted by the spirits of those whose lives were ended by the Winchester rifle, which her husband's company had invented. After her husband passed away, a psychic told her to evade the spirits, she would need to move out west, buy a home, and build non-stop. She took 36 years to construct the home, and this house has 6 kitchens, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 17 chimneys, 160 rooms, and many doors and stairs that lead to nowhere. Workers and visitors swear they hear howling at night, loud creaking, and sometimes the kitchen smells like someone is actively cooking. But regardless if you believe in ghosts or not, the house is absolutely stunning. Number 4. Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, Los Angeles. The Hollywood Roosevelt is considered to be one of the most haunted hotels in Los Angeles. It first opened its doors in 1927 and was a frequent home to Marilyn Monroe, who often stayed in the second floor cabana. Interestingly, the doors to this hotel are still open, allowing visitors to spend the night in Marilyn's suite, and some people claim to have seen Marilyn's ghost smiling and blowing kisses at them in their hotel mirrors. Hotel workers often talk about seeing the ghost of Charlie Chaplin and feel temperatures drop quickly from one room to the next. The apparition of Montgomery Clift has been blamed for patting guests' shoulders and watching maids in room 928, where he stayed for 3 months while filming From Here to Eternity. The ghost of Carole Lombard has also been spotted floating around the upper floors, and in the Blossom Room, where the first Oscars were held, 2 ghosts have been spotted, a presence of a tuxedoed man and a presence of a man in a white suit. Seems like if you want to meet a dead celebrity, the Roosevelt Hotel is the place to go. Number 3. Alcatraz, San Francisco Bay. The famous maximum security prison Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary earned a reputation as one of the most brutal and inhumane prisons in the country during its day. The strong currents around the island and cold water temperatures made escape nearly impossible, and the prison became one of the most notorious in American history. The prison closed in 1963, and the island is now a major tourist attraction. A total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, 23 were caught alive, 6 had their lives ended by guards during their escape, 2 drowned, and 5 are listed as missing and presumed drowned. Now during its 29 years in use, Alcatraz held some of the most notorious American criminals, including Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Bumpty Johnson. Today, it's a tourist attraction that many believe to be haunted. Inexplicable events happen, like the sound of someone playing the banjo. Many believe this to be the spirit of Al Capone, who spent his last days at the prison playing a banjo in the shower room to avoid being injured in the yard. The smell of smoke, the sounds of cell doors slamming, disembodied voices, moaning, and screams have also all been reported. Number 2. Queen Mary, Long Beach. Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner that sailed from 1936 to 1967. She sailed to the port of Long Beach, California, where she is permanently docked. The city of Long Beach bought the ship to serve as a tourist attraction, featuring restaurants, a museum, and a hotel, but claims were made that the ship was haunted. There are resident spirits, including Jackie, the little girl who haunts the first-class pool, John Petter, who was crushed by a watertight door, Senior Second Officer William Eric Stark, who accidentally drank dry cleaning fluid instead of gin, and the cook, who was baked alive by his own kitchen staff during World War II. But most arguably, the most notorious location on the ship for paranormal activity is room B340. Reports claim someone was knocking on the door in the middle of the night, bathroom lights turning on by themselves, the sink faucet turning on and off on its own, and unexplained bathroom doors shutting. Some guests have reported the covers of their bed being pulled off while asleep and waking to see a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. There are even more stories about this place, but I don't have enough time to fit them all in. If you're really really interested in Queen Mary, I say do some homework on it because it definitely gets creepier. And coming in at number 1 is the Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1925 as a well-furnished hostelry frequented by respectable people, but that didn't last long. As downtown became more and more dangerous, the Cecil became a place where bad people stayed, like the Night Stalker aka Richard Ramirez and Austrian killer Jack Unterweger spent time there. The Black Dahlia was rumored to have had her last drink at the hotel bar before she turned up dead a few miles away. In 1962, Pauline Otten jumped from the 9th floor window, ending her life. That same year, Julia Moore jumped from an 8th floor window, and Helen Green from the 7th floor in 1954. The Cecil Hotel may have rebranded itself recently as the Stay on Main, but it just can't shake its reputation as a place where scary things happen. In 2013, the body of Canadian tourist Elisa Lam was found in the hotel's rooftop cistern. Her body was discovered by a hotel maintenance worker investigating complaints of flooding and low water pressure. And yes, people had been showering in and drinking that water. Ugh. And last but not least, the ghost of a boy has reportedly been photographed outside a 4th floor window. Spooky.
The Queen Mary ship creeps onto this list at number 9. I had to include this one on this list because people technically did live on the ship, and it is referred to as one of the most haunted ships in America. It was operated since the 1930s, but now it is permanently docked in Long Beach, California, and it is used as a hotel. As nice as this might sound, while guests on board will often experience sleepless nights, there have been a bunch of scary paranormal activities reported on the ship. Guests will say that they will hear creepy kid laughter in the middle of the night, or things will be flown across the room. And room B340 has been taken out of rotation after there's been numerous violent poltergeist activities. It's actually impossible to keep someone in that room for the entire night because they will just get scared away. For me, I would probably last a minute. Probably not even that long. Up next, number 8, we have the Stanley Warehouse. This is a notorious haunted house that has a long reputation of being one of the most haunted places in Orange County. One of the most talked about frightening ghosts that live here is the previous owner. During her golden years, she was unable to climb up the stairs, so after her death, she is known to appear in spirit on the staircase, blocking others from going up. Visitors have reported that they found it difficult or even impossible to get past her and go up the stairs. Oh, and let's not forget about the spirit of an old man who you can hear whispering nasty and offensive things while you sleep. And if you visit the house, you will be able to hear a baby crying upstairs, but when you go into the nursery, no one is there. That would freak me out. I think I would want to visit this house just to see if I can make it upstairs, but you'll never convince me to sleep there. I mean, I just value my life way too much, and I gotta find out what happens next on Bachelor in Paradise. Moving into number 7, we have the Battery Point Lighthouse. This is an iconic lighthouse located in Crescent City, California, and it was built back in 1856. There has been numerous reports of strange and creepy occurrences happening there. Lighthouse workers and guests say that they have heard what sounded like someone wearing large boots stomping around. There have also been reports of items moving, cold spots, and the feeling that someone was touching them when no one was even there. Apparently there are 3 ghosts that haunt this lighthouse, because one just isn't enough. No one seems to know who they are or why they are haunting this place. All I know for sure is that we should just board up the place and just leave it alone, just forget about it. Every now and again a visitor will feel someone tapping on their shoulder, or furniture will move by itself. I mean, that is definitely not okay, and definitely you don't want to be there on a stormy night. Bad things are said to happen there when it rains. The Whaley House haunts us in at number 6. This house was built on an old site where the public executions used to occur. So yeah, I would say this place is pretty damn haunted. Over the years, many descendants of the Whaley family lived and died in that house, and when the house was being restored, workers and visitors began to notice strange and mysterious sounds, sightings, smells, and encounters. A lot of people reported hearing scary noises and loud footsteps that left footprints. You can actually visit this house and take a tour, but I'd rather not. I'd rather spend my time at Disneyland, where I know it's 100% safe. and not too scary, or is it? This place is littered with scary ghosts, and a lot of unsettling things have happened there. I'm getting the chills just thinking about it, so I gotta move on. Let's move on, let's see what we have next. Well, you know what? The Red House jumps into number 5 next on our list. This is an old abandoned house that is occupied by a vengeful spirit. Back in the beginning of the 20th century, an engaged couple used to live here. Well, on the night before their wedding, they had a huge fight, and the man pushed his fiancée down the stairs. She died, and he buried her in the backyard. Well, today, she has been seen haunting the house and nearby businesses. People have reported that she is wearing her wedding dress that is covered in blood. Is it her own blood? And local legends say that if you step in front of her, she'll rush forward and drag you to her gravesite, and you will never be seen again. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be visiting this creepy thing anytime soon, or any of these haunted houses on this list. I'm just not brave enough. Like I told you, I hear wind and I run. I see something just a bit bigger than a chihuahua and I run. Las Coches Adobe makes it onto this list at number 3. This might be one of the most terrifying places in California, and you know what's even more terrifying? The fact that I probably pronounced it wrong. This building is located on an old mine site, however it was covered up because on one horrific day, an accident occurred in the mine and about 30 workers were trapped inside. All of them lost their lives, so it's no wonder that this place is haunted. Locals and visitors have said that they heard the screams of the trapped miners echoing from the property, and there are also numerous reports of a lady in black and a male phantom walking around the grounds. Some people have even said that they've seen the ghost of a hanging man from a tree. And then we have the dark force. Locals say that this force is strong enough to throw you to the ground, and then you can feel heavy footsteps walking on your back, preventing you from getting up. There are a bunch of people who have said that they will never step foot in this place again, and I'm one of them. I don't blame them. Number 2, we have the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose. Since it was built in 1884, the mansion is said to be haunted by ghosts who were killed with Winchester rifles. Construction began in 1884 and never stopped until the owner died in 1992. The owner believed that her house was haunted by victims, and the only way to keep them quiet was to keep on building. The building was opened by the public in 1923, and the staff and the visitors have reported seeing mischievous spirits who liked to torment them. So yeah, don't be fooled by this beautiful house, because it is actually full of ugly surprises and scary ghosts lurking in every corner. But for those of you guys who are either brave or really naive, well, you can actually take a tour there and see all of the ghosts and scary paranormal activities for yourself. Alcatraz tops this list at number 1. Prisons are often the site of restless spirits and hauntings, and Alcatraz is no exception to that. This prison was the site of violent activities, and it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. Alcatraz is actually a breeding ground for the paranormal. One of the most feared presence on the island is known as the Thing. This creepy spirit has red glowing eyes, and it has been recently seen by visitors and also by the prison staff when Alcatraz was in operation. Other common reportings are of creepy voices, sobbing, screaming, and the banging of cell doors. Some have even said that they felt as if they were being touched, felt cold, and they even had an emotional outburst of either sadness or anger just out of nowhere.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Flying Monkeys of Napa Valley. I've always wanted to visit the Napa Valley because wine. I love wine. People across the world have probably heard or even tasted the Californian wine made here, but most of you probably will never have heard of rebobs, legendary flying monkeys, or robots, or something in between. They are most frequently sighted around Patrick Road outside of Napa itself. Now, according to local law, the rebobs were made by a mad scientist who tried to combine humans with monkeys, although some believe that they're robots created by the government as a distraction from a doomsday bunker they were building nearby. Some say the monkeys hunt teenagers craving young flesh to satisfy their appetites. All pretty wild theories. Coming into number 9, we have the Witch of the Black Diamond Mines. It is said that the Black Diamond Mines of the Mount Diablo coalfield is home to the ghost of a girl named Mary. It seems in the 1870s Mary was a nanny, but several of the children that she cared for died of illnesses or completely unknown causes. Mary was then accused of being a witch by the mining community, who hung hung her with little semblance of a trial. The town did claim that they found evidence of sorcery rituals at her home, but who knows back then? Honestly, they just burn the witches, except they hung her. What locals do know is that her spirit still haunts the mine to this day, and it is said to be angry. Mary wants revenge, and I kind of understand. Coming into number 8, we have the Smoke of the Claremont. Out in Berkeley, California, there is an old historic hotel called the Claremont. The original hotel was built in the 1800s, but burnt down as a result of a fire. 10 years later, a new Claremont was built and opened. Great, except the smell of smoke has never left. It seems that smoky fragrances waft through the halls late at night. Oh, and if you travel to the 4th floor, you may or may not meet one of the victims of the fire, a little girl who particularly likes to hang out in room 422. Coming into number 7, we have the San Diego Chilapa. It seems that San Diego may be home to a creature in the ilk of the Chupacabra, Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, or the Abominable Snowman. I really like the word abominable. Abominable. Chilapa is said to be a creature that many say they've heard crying late at night. It's said that the beast stalks San Diego and feeds off the weak, including any children it can sink its teeth into, or homeless people unlucky enough to encounter the menace. 30 mysterious deaths seem to have been blamed on the creature. Although that being said, in February 2012, San Diego residents breathed a sigh of relief as they thought that the monster had washed up dead on Mission Beach. Have a little look at the pictures and tell me what you think. Honestly, I hope that there aren't any baby chulapas out there around willing to continue mummy or daddy's work, because that looks horrible. Abominable. Coming in at number 6, we have the Boy of Grouse Lake. I would love to go to Yosemite National Park and do some hiking, but of course the sprawling 3,000 square kilometer park is filled with myths and legends. Ever since the mid-1800s, reports of a wailing sound have been noted around Grouse Lake. It seems that in 1857, Yosemite's first park ranger Galen Clark heard the cries and went to investigate. It seems that Clark kept hearing the noises and thought that it may well be a dog or an animal, so decided to ask a local First Nations tribe if they had lost a dog or any member of livestock. Legend has it that they responded to tell him that actually it was no dog, and under no circumstances should he go near the water. Why? Well, it was haunted by a First Nations boy who had fallen in and drowned. To this day he is said to call out to those who pass by, but if anyone goes into the water to help him or investigate, he will grab their feet and pull them into the lake until they drown, just like he did. Coming into number 5, we have Toys R Us of Sunnyvale. I feel like Toys R Us had bigger issues than a Californian branch store haunting, what with its spate of closures, but nonetheless the Sunnyvale, California location is said to be haunted by a poltergeist. Poltergeist in a kid's shop, honestly I can't think of anything worse. I actually used to work in a massive toy shop in London as a princess, long story, but sometimes we would do sleepovers for kids overnight, and there really is nothing scarier than a toy shop during the darkness, because your imagination kind of runs wild with all of the scenarios in which the toys could come to life and, like, I don't know, bite your ankles. Either way, scary, right? I think it's scary, but just ask the night staff here at this Toys R Us. Now legend has it that the poltergeist came about after kids broke into the store and snatched an Ouija board off the shelves, holding an impromptu seance and accidentally unleashing a spirit. Spooky. Coming into number 4, we have the Albinos of Hicks Road. It seems that Hicks Road in San Jose is a strange place with an even stranger legend attached to it. Locals believe that the road, which runs between Los Gatos and Twin Creeks, is haunted not by ghosts but by so-called hostile albinos. Rumours of the clan began circulating in the 1970s, and it is said that they are violent to passers-by and will stop cars and attack people with improvised weapons. There aren't accounts of them anyone, just generally displaying hostility and creepy behaviour. The legend says that they eat roadkill, and they have been spotted dragging away dead deer into the hills. Coming into number 3, we have Haunted Disneyland. Disneyland California opened in 1955 in Anaheim. Actually went twice with Landon and Danny 2 and 3 years ago. Here's a picture of us along with Michael McCrudden and Charlotte Dobre of I.O. We're having a lovely time. It's a good time. There are balloons. Despite it being the Magic Kingdom, the park is filled with urban legends. The most enduring is that actually Disneyland is haunted by the ghost of none other than Walt Disney himself, who is said to stalk the park at night. He's also said to regularly visit his old apartment above the fire station on Main Street. It is also said that the It's a Small World ride is haunted, with the dolls moving and switching places with others. Some say that the haunted house actually is haunted, not by one of the ghosts that it looks like are kind of there, but by a little boy. Apparently his ashes were scattered or something along those lines. Others say that the Secret Club 33 is the Illuminati headquarters. Honestly, Disneyland is so filled with urban legends, we've made a whole video about it, so you should check that out.